Hi guys, welcome to Mr. Smith's Kitchen. I'm Brian, Mr. Smith Kitchen. Welcome if you're new. Well, even if you're not new, welcome. Today I thought we would we're gonna dive right in because this is a process. But we're doing a red velvet cake. I've never made one before. They're not half bad. And this is a pretty solid recipe. It does have a lot of moving parts to it though. The overall process is no different than any other cake. We're going to mix the wet, we're going to mix the dry, we're going to combine them, dry into wet, 3 stages, buttermilk in between, but there is another little new nuance. So, that being said, don't forget to subscribe if you'd be so kind. Notification bell is right next to the subscribe box if you want to know when my videos come out. And as always, I do appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to hear me ramble on. Comments, always welcomed. Please keep them kind. So, red velvet cake is an old school cake. Very old school cake. Been around for a minute. Things you will need for this. I am going to use my stand mixer. You can use a hand mixer. If you are using a stand mixer, you're going to need a paddle attachment. The next thing you're going to need to do, first thing we need to do, is turn our oven on. We're going to turn it on 350 degrees and get that bad boy preheating. That's a must. Has to start there. Next thing you're going to want to need is 2 9-inch pans. These are about 1.5 inches deep. If you go to buy 9-inch pans, get the deeper ones. It's okay. Shallow's alright, but you're kind of limited with the shallow. If you get the deeper one, the cake's only going to go so high in the pan. So it helps it go a little stronger. But what I did here is I buttered this one, and then I stuck a parchment paper on the bottom. I just cut that out from a piece of regular parchment paper using the bottom as a guide. The bottom of the pan as a guide. Now, I did learn something new real quick. I'll share with you. This is a non-stick pan. I butter it to ensure that it stays non-stick. If you have a non-stick pan, do not use vegetable spray in it. It's hard to get off even when you wash it, and it will make your pans eventually non-stick. Or will make them stick. You know, things will start sticking to them. So if you're using non-stick pans like this one, just use butter. If you have just a regular old 9-inch pan that you have to grease and flour, it's okay to use vegetable oil on it instead of butter. The spray, vegetable spray. So 2 9-inch pans. This is a double layer cake. Parchment paper in the bottom. If you want, I recommend it. It's just a safety net in case things go bad at the bottom. It's hard to get them out without tearing them up. So, as always, I wrote the recipe down in my notebook. If we like it, it turns out great. We will keep it. This cake does have a cream cheese icing on it, but it's kind of a fancy cream cheese icing. I've never done this one before. It involves a few different things other than cream cheese and sugar. But anyhow, let's get to the cake part of this because this is what's going to take the most. Let me get the camera down where we can see things, and we'll get started. Alright, so we're ready. We're going to start this thing. You guys ready? I'm ready. First thing we're going to do is turn the mixer or the bowl around because maybe it's just me, but I prefer the handle to be on the right. Could be wrong. I don't know, but it feels so right. Alright, so first thing we're going to need in our list of ingredients is a 1/2 cup, 113 milligrams, or 113 grams of butter. It's 1 stick of butter. And what we're going to do after we plug in our mixer, as always, last second, is we're just going to cream this real quick, which means we're going to turn it from a stick into just a creamy mess inside the bowl. This is kind of like the first stage of incorporating air. Because in cakes you want some air in it. That's what gives it its lift. Alright, that didn't take long at all, like a whole whopping 5 seconds. Essential tool, spatula, because we're going to do a lot of scraping the bowl in between things. This one is Christmas calories don't count, and if you think like you should, as Christmas is not just a day, it's a frame of mind, every day could be Christmas, which means the calories never count. So you can just eat cake and cookies every day. I don't know if that's healthy for you, but yeah, calories don't count, so be it. All right, so we got that creamed up. We're in good shape there. We will set that down right there because I didn't grab a plate. Next thing we're going to need to put in here is 1.5 cups of just regular old granulated sugar, 300 grams. We'll put that in here. And then we're going to beat this relatively slowly. Okay, well, we're going to start out slow till we get everything kind of incorporated. And then after that, we will turn it on high, and we're going to let it beat for about 3 to 5 minutes. Another thing you want to add into this is your vanilla. You want to put it in now instead of waiting. And your vanilla is 1 teaspoon or 4 grams worth. It's not a lot, and it's mostly for just a little bit of flavor in it. All right, everybody I watch bake puts vanilla in everything, which is good. It helps balance a lot of things. It's kind of like kosher salt in cooking. All right, so when you get this beat together, we're looking for a light and fluffy, not creamy, because your sugar's not been heated, so it's not going to be, you know, smooth. But we're looking for light and creamy. All right, so I'm gonna let this run for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next set of ingredients. All right, so we let that beat. It's probably 5 minutes, and then we're gonna go ahead and scrape our bowl down, get that going. But you want the kind of the consistency of mashed potatoes is what you're looking for, right there. A good stiff mashed potato is the best way to describe it. So the next thing we're gonna need to put in here after we've got our 300 grams of sugar, 1 cup or 1.5 cups, and our stick of butter at 113 grams. We're going to put 2 large eggs in. Now, I don't think I mentioned this with the butter, but as always, your butter and your eggs should be at room temperature. When baking, unless otherwise specified, like making whipping cream, always room temperature. So we're going to put one egg in, and we're going to beat that until the yellow's gone. Okay. So it's pretty good and incorporated there. Well, I guess the yellow wouldn't be gone, but it'll be all mixed in. And then we're simply just going to add our other egg. And that's it for the wet ingredients. Double check to make sure. Yep, that's all we need for the wet ingredients. Let that go for just a minute. All right. Give it a good stir. Make sure everything's nice and incorporated. That's important. Yeah, that's why we stir. And you want to stir in between every step if possible. And like on the extended steps, where we had to I had to let this beat for 3 to 5 minutes. I stopped it every minute or so and gave it even 30 seconds. I mean, it never hurts to scrape. Scrape and mix. That's the important things. All right, get that off of there. All right, so that's it for our wet ingredients. So the next thing we need to do is work on our dry ingredients as soon as I get done goofing off with this. All right, so let me move the stand mixer over here this way, and we'll get our dry ingredients. All right, so you will need some cake flour. You're going to need 2 cups plus 2 tablespoons of cake flour. It's 250 grams. All right, now when you use cake flour, you want to sift it. You want to run it through a sifter. You can use like a strainer. You can, I mean, anything that will sift. You can pick one of these old school sifters up pretty much anywhere, and they're not more than $5-6 at most. You can use this. You can use, you know, a wire mesh strainer, whatever you have, but it has lumps in it. You know, cake flour is just a fine, lower protein flour, and it has a tendency to clump. To this, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. All right, I'm using Dutch process, but you want to use an unsweetened. That way, I mean, it's not a lot, so it's not horrible. And you can sift this also. I'm not going to. I'm just going to put it in here because we're going to whisk it all together. 2 tablespoons, which is exactly 15 grams. I don't think I mentioned that. And then we need a 1/2 teaspoon, 2 grams of salt. Now, I use kosher salt. You can use table salt if you don't have kosher salt. If you use kosher salt, try to get the fine grain kosher salt. If you can't find it, like this go around, I could not find fine grain kosher salt anywhere. I had to take regular coarse grain, and with that coarse grain salt, I had to take the back of my spoon and crush it up. If not, you will inevitably end up with a chunk of salt that does not dissolve, and somebody is going to say, oh, I just tasted salt, which is never any good. So we've got our 2.5 cups or 2 tablespoons or 250 grams of cake flour. Cake flour will give it that moistness that you want your cake to have. We got our 2 tablespoons, 15 grams of cocoa powder, and our half a teaspoon of salt, 2 grams. All right, and that's really it. You know, and you can run all this through your wire mesh. You can run it like I'm doing it here, where I use the wire mesh on the flour and just whisk together, because you're going to have to whisk it together anyhow to get it together. Your cocoa powder and your salt. All right, so we're going to set that aside for just 1 second, and then we're going to move on to the next step. A lot of steps before we combine it. Okay, so I've got 1 cup of room temperature buttermilk. Now, might I recommend, this is just a suggestion, unless you use a lot of buttermilk, get the powdered buttermilk and make your own. Or, if you don't want to go through that expense, you can pour into regular whole milk, or 2%, I guess, some lemon or lime juice and let it sit for about 10 minutes. The acidity will make it pretty much buttermilk. But I just buy powdered buttermilk. It lasts forever in the fridge. Once you open it up, you put it in the fridge, the powder, it lasts months. And that way I can just make the amounts I need. So 1 cup room temperature buttermilk. To that, I am going to add 2 tablespoons or 6 grams of red food coloring. All right, now be careful with the red food coloring. It gets on everything and it does not come off easy if you get it on you. So I'm going to mix it with my buttermilk, and I have it in a glass container. That way I don't go dyeing any of the other bowls. I mean, red food coloring is cool, but it's a pain in the butt to get out of anything, and it can go everywhere. And we're just going to mix this together. It's going to look dark when you mix it in. All right, I mean, it almost, not quite blood red, but close. But what happens is you want it to be dark now, because as it bakes, it will lighten up. So, and like I said, you want to be cautious. You know, you don't want it to get on, you know, I mean, or maybe you do want it to get all over the place. Maybe that's the look of your kitchen, is that, you know, artistic, you know, mess look. Which, hey, if that's the case, rock on. All right, so now we're going to bring our bowl back, our mixer back, and we're going to do this in stages. All right, we're going to put 1/3 of our dry in here, mix it, half of the buttermilk in, and alternate. So that way it'll be 3 parts dry mix, 2 parts buttermilk. And I need to get, what do I need to get? Oh, I want to use a measuring cup. Ugh. As prepared as I'd like to think I am sometimes. Sometimes not so much. Most of the time not so much. But this just helps keep things even. Alright, so we're going to put about 1/3 of our cake mix in there. Not quite 2 cups, so go about that much. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be precisely cut into thirds. But, yeah, you want to do it in stages. You don't want to overwork, you know, the protein and the glutens that are in here. When you start your mixer up, slow. Start out slow. If not, you will have a face full of flour and cocoa. All right. Get the old spatula out for scraping. It's funny, I say that, and all I can think of is those boots are made for walking. You know, the spatula is made for scraping. And that's just what it'll do. Alright, so we got that in there. Like I said, you scrape as much as you want. You want to ensure that everything is mixed together. Now we're going to pour half our buttermilk in there. So about a half a cup. Ooh, that is red. And once again, start it off on low. And we'll get that incorporated. And then we're just going to basically wash, rinse, repeat until everything's incorporated. The cocoa, the dry ingredients, and the buttermilk. All right, we got it all in there. And to review, a third of the dry, a half a cup of the buttermilk, and then a third of the dry, then the second half a cup of buttermilk, and then the last part of the dry. You always want to end on dry. Now, why? I don't know, but that's just what I've been taught. So, and by taught, I mean just by watching other people. And I read it somewhere, but they never did say why. So we'll go ahead. Our cake batter is done for the most part. We got one last step, just one last step. This is actually kind of a cool step. It's like science. But first thing I want to do is get this bowl wiped down real well. And we're going to do something really neat that's different to cake. So far, this cake has been a standard cake, minus the red food coloring. I've never put food coloring into a cake before. But we want to get this mixed up real good. Like such. Get our batter off of our scraping utensil. All right, there we go. I know it tastes good so far. All right, so the last thing you will need is a teaspoon of, you can use white vinegar or apple cider vinegar. I'm choosing to use apple cider vinegar. And you will need a teaspoon of baking soda. All right, and then we're going to grab a fork because I didn't grab one. We're going to mix these together. Now, when you do this, you want to try to use a somewhat larger container because this will start to foam and sizzle. All right, hear it? See it? Foaming. And then we're going to mix this together real quick, which is really, and what we're doing is we're activating the baking soda. All right, baking soda is a leavener. It causes things to rise, but we want to activate it in this. And then we're going to mix it in real quick. And then as quickly as possible, we want to get our batter into our pans. So I'll grab my pans real quick. All right, we got that mixed in. Now we want these to be even. As soon as I remember what exactly I did with my scale, which is right here behind you. Thank you for letting me know that. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I mean, you don't have to move at the speed of light, but yeah, sometimes you might be making a cake, or maybe you don't know. Sometimes you might be making a cake and you get distracted. You know, it's okay to let your batter sit for a minute, you know, and just rest and it'll be fine. You know, it's not a big deal. Now that we've activated the baking soda, though, we wanted to, as proficiently as possible, get it into the oven. You know, we pre-activated it. We'll get that off to the side. Get one more good scrape around here. Make sure we got everything mixed up real good. And your batter should be nice and red all the way through, fairly even in color. And yeah, you want to make sure you don't have any lumps or clumps or anything like that. Because, I mean, that can happen. Even if you've gone as efficiently as you can to ensure you don't. I mean, as far as you've mixed and mixed and mixed and probably mixed a little more, you could still have a clump or two or a spot that is a little different. So I'm going to use the scale. And if we did this right, because you want your cakes to be even in the pan, so that way they cook evenly, right? You don't want one big cake, one little cake that's dry and burnt, and the other one's not quite done. And if we did this right, it should be about 530 grams per pan. So we'll zero out the scale like we just did. And we will get our batter in there. Now it may vary a little bit, but I mean, that's a good place to start is 530 grams at any rate. And then that way we can just kind of wiggle it back and forth depending on where we're at. There's our first pan. Like I said, always zero out your pans, because like I got butter in both these pans, and I may not have the same amount of butter even if the pans weigh the same. I may have buttered one just a gram or two heavier than the other. You know, and a lot of it will depend on, you know, what's your flour like? Is it, you know, all that stuff. I mean, it never, I don't think I've ever seen it actually truly balance out. I mean, that's not even in this case. It's close, but it's not quite there. So we'll have to take a little out of one to put into another. But I need to go grab my offset spatula. I promise someday I will be a little more prepared for you guys. But we don't want to waste any of this beautiful cake batter. All right, so we need to add just a hair of this cake batter into this cake batter. And it doesn't have to be exact, but yeah, you want it as close as possible. There we go. There we go. And then we'll just get the scale out of the way there. And then I'm just going to take my offset spatula, even these out. You know, if you don't have an offset spatula, that's fine. I mean, you can use the back of a spoon. You can use your rubber spatula for that matter. But you want to get them even. That way you don't have a, you know, a lopsided cake. Because I have had that happen to me a few times. You know, over the last year or so, I've made some decent amount of cakes. And in case you didn't know, I think I mentioned it once or twice last week in a video or two. I'm going to start making cakes, not like a bunch of cakes, but, you know, 3 or 4 cakes a week that I'm going to start selling here locally. So if you are local and you want a cake, something I've made in any of my videos, let me know. Or if there's something you want me to try and make, you know, see me make, that way you can, I'll make it. The caramel bundt cake that I made, well, it was a brown sugar bundt cake with homemade caramel icing, which went over very well with my testers. I have a whole restaurant full of testers. And everybody that tried it, they absolutely loved it. Yeah, I mean, and if that's something you think you might, you know, would like to get, just let me know. Leave me a comment down below. I mean, and I can hunt you down on Messenger, or you can hunt me down on Messenger. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram. You know, just let me know. If, like I said, if you're in the Central Ohio area, I'll be more than happy to bake one for you, and you know, we can figure it all out. But anyhow, so we've got these out. We've got them even, which is what we wanted. And then all we got left to do is, well, at least for this portion of the program, so to speak, is bake it. This video might go a little long because we still got to make the cream cheese icing, and there's a few steps to, yeah, this. Anyway, it may not go too long. All right, so we got that. We are there. So what to do next? Let's talk about that. Okay, so we got our oven preset at 350 degrees. We're going to put these in the oven. We're going to put them in side by side, leaving some space in between them, so that way the air can circulate around them. Even if you don't have a convection oven, yeah, where the air circulates by fan, the air still moves a little bit in there. Heat rises and circulates. You want that gap in between them. We're going to put them in there for about 25 minutes. Since I've never made these cakes in this oven before, I'm going to start checking it at about 20. So we'll say 23 to 27 minutes. Things to look for is it should start to pull away from the sides of the pan, shrink a little. And you should be able to stick a toothpick in it. It should come out clean, or at least just light crumb. And the center of it, you should be able to touch it, and it should be firm. If none of those have happened, let it bake for 1 minute at a time, literally 1 minute at a time, and check it. You don't want to over bake it. That'll lead to a dry cake. So I'm going to go ahead and get these in the oven. After I pull them out, we'll look at how to take them out of the pan. All right, see you in 1 second. All right, so we let it bake. They ended up baking for 24 minutes. And here, I'll show you what they look like. I pulled them out of the oven already, and we're going to let them cool for like 10 minutes. That way, they're able to get out of the pan, and we can handle them a little better. Plus, I mean, they're still kind of soft. Remember, nothing comes out of the oven at room temperature. But there we are, right there. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but like right up in there, how it's come away from the edge, or come away from the side a little bit. That's what we're looking for. And I don't know if you noticed the hole in the middle, but I didn't toothpick test it. I had to skewer test it because I still can't find my toothpicks from last week. But putting it in there, I mean, it came out clean. There's a little bit of red on there, but that's okay. That's not batter. That's just crumb. And that's okay. So, and then if we touch the top, it feels firm. It's spongy, but firm. So we're going to let those rest for 10 minutes. And after that 10 minutes is up, we can take them out of the oven. Or out of the pan. Oven. All right, so we've let them rest for 10 minutes. 10-ish minutes. That's what it is. Take an offset spatula, regular, spatula, knife, plastic knife, whatever, and run it along the edges just to make sure we're not sticking to anything, because that's never good if you are. Yeah, remember we put the parchment paper down there on the bottom. That way, we had double insurance that nothing was going to stick. All right, got that going. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to use this rack here. If you don't have a rack, you can always just use a pan. Now, I did spray vegetable oil on this rack to keep the cake from sticking. All right, we're in good shape. Take that off. Take the paper off. And we're just going to flip it right back over onto its thing. Yep, did a little damage there, but that's all right. And then we'll do the same thing with this one. So the next steps we got to do with this is we're going to do a whole lot of waiting. Basically, sweet. What we have to do is, because these are such a, a gentle cake, it's moist, it's very cake-like, so to speak. We have to let them get completely down to room temperature, and then I'm actually going to wrap these with saran wrap, and I'm going to put them in the fridge. So our next step is going to take, probably about 2.5 hours. I'm going to let these set for about a half hour. And then I'll wrap them up in some saran wrap, some plastic wrap. And then after that, I will put them in the fridge, and I'm going to let them chill for about 2 hours. That'll help them firm up a little bit. So then we can ice. So when I come back, we'll get these out of the fridge, and we're going to make our icing, which is going to be amazing. At least I hope it will be. I've never made this icing before. It's a cream cheese icing, but it has a different cheese in it. So other than the cream cheese. So I will see you here in just a little bit. All right. So we let the cakes chill for about an hour and a half or so in the fridge. Me and Chris did some running around. Came back, and now it's time to do some icing. They firmed up nicely, so we'll go ahead and get down here where we can see things. And like I said, this is it's a cream cheese icing, so it involves cream cheese, but it's got a different cheese in it also. So here's our cakes. They firmed up quite well, which is nice. And the reason why they firmed up was the butter in them had a chance to solidify. But the cheese we're going to add to it is mascarpone cheese, and it's a sweeter cheese. You know, it's very creamy, and it'll help add a nice richness to this. So the first thing we're going to need, this only takes like 5 ingredients. It's not, well, it takes 5 ingredients to do this part. 4 ingredients. And then the 5th ingredient is actually a soft whipped cream. So we're going to need a second bowl. If you are using a stand mixer, you're going to need a paddle attachment for this part and a whisk attachment for the next part. We're going to make the cream cheese base, then we're going to make the whipped cream in a separate bowl and combine the two. So let me get the cream cheese in there. You're going to need 1 block, 8 ounces of cream cheese. And all we're going to do is whip this so it's soft. And then all right. We got that nice and, creamed up. Doesn't take long. Your cream cheese, all your stuff should be at room temperature. Also, you don't want any of this cold. Now, the heavy cream we're going to use to make the whipped cream with is in the fridge. You want that to be cold. In this case, because we're going to make whipped cream out of it. And that, you'll want it to be cold. Let me grab a paper towel real quick. Get the cream cheese off my knuckle. Alright, then we're going to put in our 8 ounces of the mascarpone cheese. Alright. Now, if you can't find this in your grocery store, although we found it in our grocery store, and our grocery store is a very small town for being a Walmart, doesn't really carry a whole lot of not common things. I had never even heard of this cheese before today. But they have it. But if you don't, so let's say you can't find it for whatever reason, that's okay. Just get you another block of cream cheese. So you'll use 2 8-ounce blocks instead of the cheese and the cream cheese. And then we're just going to cream this up, and yeah, that makes it super uber creamy. And like I said, I've never had this before, but it is my understanding that this is a sweeter, creamier cheese. That'll give it a nice creamy texture on top of the cream cheese. Alright, so got that mixed up nice, and always scrape that bowl. Make sure everything's getting combined, and is in good shape. We don't want to have a hidden clump of any one product. We want it all blended together so it tastes amazing and magnificent. Now, with cream cheese, as always, let it set out for a minute. I mean, if you know you're going to be baking in the afternoon, set it out first thing in the morning. If you're going to be baking in the morning, set it out the night before. It won't hurt anything, I promise. Because you want it room temperature. You can leave it in the package, but it's kind of a pain in the butt to get out if it's still in the package and it's room temperature. So I would recommend, what I do is I open up the package completely, and then I just put a piece of saran wrap over the top of it. If not, it can yellow. Alright, so the next thing we're going to need is 1 cup of powdered sugar, and that's 115 grams. It's just powdered confectionery sugar. Very fine. Put that in there. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Alright, we'll get that in there. Now when you fire up your mixer, hand mixer or stand mixer, low for the first minute, or you will end up with a face full of powdered sugar. And we're just going to want to beat this, mix it until it is creamy smooth. We'll make sure we don't have any lumps in it. So we got that nice and creamy smooth, and I mean it is creamy smooth. Especially with it being an icing, you don't want, Because I know, like, when we make cheesecakes, occasionally you'll have a little piece of Philly that just doesn't quite smooth out for whatever reason. You know. And it's okay because it usually melts when you put it in the oven. Well, this isn't going in the oven, so we want it to be as smooth as possible. Okay, so we got that done. Next thing we want to do, we got to take off the paddle attachment here because we're going to switch over to a different bowl. And now, with the second bowl, I mean, and you can do this with just a hand mixer also, by all means. You don't want to necessarily, you don't have to necessarily put the bowl in the freezer, because a lot of times with whipped toppings, you'll want to put the bowl in the freezer, put your whisk attachment in the freezer, and you want your whipping cream to be ice cold. Now, you want your whipping cream to be cold, but your bowl doesn't, in this case, doesn't have to necessarily go in the freezer because we're not building it up to super stiff peaks like a whipped topping. But we're just making it like a semi-stiff peak. Yeah, but I went ahead and I chilled mine anyhow just because that's what I'm used to. And then we'll need the whisk attachment. Whisk attachment. And then we're going to need 1 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream, which I gotta get my handy dandy measuring cup out. Now, one thing me and Chris are going to try and do, we saw somebody make butter, and he lives in England. His name's John Kirkwood. If you ever get a chance to check out his channel, he's got some amazing stuff. He's a retired cook, and his recipes are just off the hook. I hope to make some of them eventually. But he had a video on how to make your own butter out of heavy whipping cream, and it was super simple. I guess there was a point in time when butter was actually more expensive than cream over in England, and so people resorted to making their own butter, and he learned how to make it just by doing heavy whipping cream. If we do it, I am going to do a video on it because I find it absolutely fascinating to see if it works. So all we have to do is put our heavy whipping cream in there. Make sure it's the heavy whipping cream, not just whipped cream. Heavy whipping cream has a higher fat content, and you need that fat in order to get the lift. So all we got to do now, when you do this, start it out on low to medium until it starts to go a little bit. If not, this stuff splatters. I have it happen to me every time. And like I said, we're not looking to make a true whipped cream, so pay attention. Or you could over whip it and it turns into a block, which is really weird. Okay, so we got that whipped, and I'll show you what I mean, because it should be not quite, if you've ever made whipped cream before, or bought in like Cool Whip for that matter. It's kind of heavy on it, and see how it stays. But it's not nearly as peakish as it would want to be. It's not quite medium. It's not quite a true stiff peak. So we got that done. Now we have to essentially temper the cheese. And what I mean by temper, remember how you do eggs? When you're adding them to something hot, you have to put a little bit of the hot product into the eggs in order to make it so they don't scramble putting them in. Well, this cheese filling, this cream cheese filling is very dense, and so we want to loosen that up a little bit. So we're just taking a little bit of the whipped topping, and we're just mixing it in there. That'll lighten it up. There we go. Yeah, and that gives it a little bit of, now it's not as dense. Because what we're going to do is we're going to combine the two and mix it, but we don't want to combine it all at once and have it all deflate. It won't give it that light texture to it. So we'll put the rest of our whipped cream in there. Just like so. Alright. Set this right here. Bring our mixer back over. Set that on there. I do believe this is going to be worth it. I know it looks fantastic. I haven't gotten any on my fingers yet to try it. And we're just going to mix it on low, medium, low, you know, to get it all well incorporated. Alright, I think we are incorporated. I know this looks amazing. I can't wait for you guys to try this. I mean, because I know you're going to want to make this. It's just too good to not make. I mean, so far everything's spot on. I can tell you the cake batter tastes great. I accidentally licked that bowl because if you don't think I'm not gonna, you're crazy. That's how I get to know what the flavor of the cake is going to taste like while it's baking, and that way I can go, oh, that's a fantastic cake, or that's going to be a great cake. Now, the profile changes a little bit as it cooks, just like with anything else. But it at least gives me an idea of where I'm headed in life. So then we'll just give this a quick run around. I'm here to the boy, that just changes it so much. Now I could have put all this whipped cream in here by hand, you know, hands down, hands down. But it's just faster to do it with a mixer. But I mean, there's our whipped cream, or our cream cheese topping, and it's very light, very airy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get this area straightened up, get the cakes out of their plastic, and we'll start icing. All right, so I'm going to try something new and different. I'm going to use a piping bag to put all this on with. Yeah, now I'm going to use a spatula to smooth it out with, but I watched Stephanie Jaworski do it this way on her channel on Joy of Baking, and I thought, huh, how interesting. I've never done that before. And I am all about trying new things, even if it means I'm going to screw it up in the process. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'll screw it up. You know, and it's not like we won't be able to fix it, so to speak. I mean, it's icing. It's not like we're going to have, you know, issues. All right, so she did just a straight nozzle, not the fancy, like, claw-looking nozzle. And she just did circles around. Just like so, on the first layer. And she used the big, if you are piping it on here like this, she used the big, the large tip that doesn't, the non-star tip, just the regular round tip. And then we're going to take our, you can use the back of a spoon, a knife. I'm using an offset spatula. And we're just going to smear this out. It's okay if it goes over the edge because we're going to cover it with icing. Which you don't have to do. The chocolate espresso cake I was talking about a few videos back, it doesn't get iced on the side, just a ganache on the top and in the center. And I mean, that's a thing. So we got that on there, and we'll set our piping back down for a second. Now, when you put the second one on, it's completely up to you, really. How do you want it? I mean, like, if you look at this one here, it's got a little bit of a dome to it. You know, I mean, nothing huge. But if you want it flat side up, just flip it over. But realistically, I don't think anybody's going to care. At least in my house, we're not doing this for sale. In this case, we're just doing this for us to eat. Remember, right? We're learning, right? You know, but I know that if I want a flat top, I just flip it over, or you can take a knife and cut that little bit of high spot off of there. You know, either way. And then that'll leave you a little sliced cake to eat after the fact. So, when we're doing this, let me get it refilled here. Maybe. Now, I'm hoping that sometime in the near future, I will get a cake stand. That way, I can turn my cakes as I go, which would be awesome. All right, so to do the sides, you literally just hold your piping bag up like this, is the way I saw her do it. And she just, you know, kind of filled it in on the sides, like such. You know, and it doesn't get a horribly heavy layer. Yeah, it doesn't get a huge... Now, you could put a huge thick layer on it. But, I mean, I know with the one that she demonstrated making, in case you didn't guess, that's where I got this recipe from. Yeah, you can still see a little bit of the cake shining through, and it actually looked really cool. I was quite impressed. All right, well, I'll finish the side here in a second. So, and then the top was just the same way. Just the circle going around. It would help if I did an even circle and all that jazz, but hey, we're not perfect. All right. Well, I'm going to finish getting this ice, because all I'm going to do is just spread that out even. And when I come back, we'll take a look at it and maybe try a piece. All right. We got her iced. And not looking half bad. Not half bad at all, if I do say so myself. You see kind of a high spot right there. Now that I've looked at it in the camera, that's all right, though. That's all right. Like I said, we're not out to win any contest, but by God, I'd buy that cake. So here's what we're going to do now. I know you're thinking, my God, Brian, let's just eat that cake. And I want to, but we have to wait just about a half hour. Because what we're going to do is, I'm going to put that in the fridge, because we have worked that frosting something fierce. And that is a very light, fragile frosting. I mean, as you can see, my face is red. I've been working so hard. So we want to let that frosting calm down, get cold again. You know, I mean, it's cold now, but it's not as cold as it can be, and kind of firm up a little. So stick that in there for 30 minutes. And when I come back, we're going to get us a piece, because that looks amazing. All right, I'll see you here. So we let the cake sit in the fridge and just kind of chill out and let the icing relax. You know, we worked it pretty hard making it. So now it's time to just get a piece cut. So let's get down to brass tacks. I need to have some cake in my life, you know, and I'm hoping this one hits the spot. I'm sure it will. I mean, it looks good. It held steady, all that good stuff. So we'll go ahead and get us a piece cut. That way we can enjoy a slice. I really hope you guys do try this recipe. It just looks, you know, amazing. Red velvet cake's always a winner, at least in my house. You know, it can be. We haven't had it in forever though. We're not a big fan of most store-bought cakes, and it's not even like the texture of the cake. It's more the icing that comes with most store-bought cakes that doesn't sit well with me. Wow, that looks gorgeous. Yeah, so we're down to, as I always say, that 2/3 spot where it smelled good, it looked good. You know, now we just have to see how it tastes. That's what she looks like on the inside. And if you care to see pictures of it, it'll be on Instagram. So here is our cake. I mean, I think it looks fantastic. It's got good texture. It is a little cold, so I mean, and as it sits here, it will soften up a little. I do recommend that if you make this cake, because of the cream cheese icing, you keep it refrigerated, maybe pull it out and let it warm up before you serve it, would be my thought on it at any rate. I wouldn't let it sit out for days on end anyway. And you could probably get a good, well, week if it lasts that long in your house. Yeah. I'm digging it. That that icing is off the hook. And the cake itself, moist. Even though it's been sitting in the fridge. Which, if it's moist from sitting in the fridge, it's gonna, because it's chilled. I mean, it's cold. It's gonna be super moist when it warms back up a little bit. You can taste the little bit of chocolate in it, but it's not by any means overbearing. It tastes like somebody took a vanilla cake and a chocolate cake, blended them together, and it made a wonderful red cake. I have one more piece. That's just how good it is. That icing. So, I've never made an icing, with 2 different cheeses, but I've never put whipped cream in it before either. And that whipped cream made that cheesecake, that cream cheese frosting, so light. I think I found a new favorite icing at any rate. So, I recommend trying this cake. It's not hard to make. The biggest thing you have to be thoughtful of is not getting red food dye all over the place. I actually got it on my cutting board, and now I've got a red dot in the middle of my cutting board. But that's okay. It adds character and gives me something to talk about. Try this. Let me know if you do. I don't think you'll be disappointed by any stretch of the imagination. That is probably one of the better red cakes I've had, you know, and I don't say that because I make it. I made it. I say that because it really is good. I would never tell you guys to try something that that wasn't good. That, would be pointless. You would be like, Brian, I'm never talking to you again. You gave me a horrible recipe. I think you'll enjoy this. I definitely try it. So, next week, I don't know what we're going to do on Tuesday. I am getting ready to go to the hardware store and pick up some lumber to start doing some shelving. So, we may be building another set of shelves Tuesday. Who knows, out in the garage, but I really got to get that moving. Things have just been hectic, and winter storms and all that stuff haven't given me much opportunity to do things, but it's time to start moving forward on things. Wednesday, I don't know what we're cooking for dinner, so to speak. It's hard to say, but I think we may have a guest that is going to cook for us. Don't know yet, but we'll see. And then Thursday, we'll find something amazing to bake, hopefully. Now, that all being said, that's all subject to change, because as I said in one of my earlier videos this week, I really thought this was the week that Abby was having her surgery, but it's not. It's next week. And so we have to, not that there's a lot to prepare for, but we still have to prepare. So things can change. Family, 4 kids, work, life, things are always on the fly. But as it stands right now, I'll be seeing you next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday if you'll have me. Thanks for letting me come into your home. Thanks for taking the time to watch my videos. I love you. I love you very much, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Tell somebody else you love them. You love them very much. Take them some of this red cake. Friend for life. Guarantee it. Spread the wealth and the knowledge of baking. It makes people happy. Sweets always make people happy. So until next week, stay safe. I love you, and I'll see you then. All right?